On this week's podcast, we are starting a new series, which I am so excited about. This is something that started for me back in 2017. I received the guidance to write a book called All Roads Lead Home, and the book is meant to be about the religions in the World Peace Grid, the various religions in the World Peace Grid. In the World Peace Grid, we send Reiki to people from all of the different religions, all of the major religions in the world, native peoples' religions, Buddhism, Hinduism, independent spiritual paths, Christianity, Judaism, the goddess religions, Islam, Shintoism, all others, including agnostics and atheists, Zoroastrianism, and Taoism. And the purpose of this book was meant to show people that while we sometimes identify as one particular religion, or our background is one particular religion, if we were to learn more about the other religions and the other spiritual paths, then there would be a lot more understanding and a lot more acceptance. And so the purpose of the podcast, we're going to start a series of podcasts just going interviewing people from each of those religions. And I do want to let you know that for some of the religions, such as Buddhism, Hinduism, Shintoism, Zoroastrianism, and Taoism, I don't have anybody to interview yet. So if you follow that religion and would like to talk with us on the podcast about it, you can email me through a link in the podcast. I'd love to hear from you, because I really believe that if we understood all of these other religions, we'd realize how familiar or how similar they are, and even for their differences, that they all come back to the same thing, and that is love and just doing good and being helpful to others. And I think that we all follow very similar guiding principles. So on this week's podcast, I'm going to be talking to Caig about a very misunderstood religion, Paganism, and that falls under the goddess religions. So welcome, Karen. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I love to talk about this because, as you mentioned, it is misunderstood. And I live in the American South, and I am frequently reluctant to identify as a pagan because they think I'm worshiping the devil or something.
I know, and yet nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah.
And so I really am excited about this series to just help us all understand each other. Now, there is a good chance this could turn into a book, everyone. Stay tuned. I did actually write. I received very specific guidance in 2017, and I did begin writing the first 3 chapters of the book. So if this does turn into something by the end of these podcasts, or even afterward, I will certainly let you know. In the meantime, just to let you know a little bit about what we have going on at the farm, if you don't already get our newsletter, go ahead and sign up. There's a direct link in the podcast for that. I'd also like to let you know about some classes that we have coming up in July. July 16th to the 22nd are classes in an Asian and European friendly time zone. And those are RMA classes, which means those are level 1 and 2 and masters. And those are the classes that qualify toward professional membership in the ICRT Reiki Membership Association, if you're interested in that. And we all notice that when you do become a professional member, the Reiki energy just seems to begin working with you a little bit differently, like a little bit more seriously. And so I wanted to offer that for our Asian and European friends. So it is very early mornings in North America. It's evenings in Asia, and it's just regular mornings in Europe. And those are online classes. They're a little shorter day, so it's 3 days for level 1 and 2 and 4 days for the masters. And then I have a class beginning July 23rd that I'm incredibly excited about. July 23rd and 24th is a level 1 and 2 animal Reiki class. It's in person, although if you do want to attend online, let me know because we can accommodate that. And we will be doing that class from Campobello Island, which is our summer home, a little island off the coast of Maine, where we can actually work with the ocean and with the whales and seals and porpoises. We saw porpoises from the porch just the other day. And that class is going to be followed by a whale tour. We're going to be going for 3 hours out onto the water and on the Monday, July 25th, and we're going to be offering animal Reiki to the whales. The whales should be arriving by the end of July. So they're not there yet, but we are looking forward to their arrival. They come in July and August and early September in order to feed. So we're excited about that. And that's followed by a master class. And the master class begins on the 25th because we are also going to take the masters out to see the whales then. So I hope you can join us. In August, I have some classes in an Australian-friendly time zone. I have animal communication and Karuna Reiki. If you'd like to join us for that class, that is going to be mornings in Australia. Again, there is a day added to each of those classes, a little bit shorter day. It's mornings in Australia and it's evenings in North America and very early mornings in Asia. So would love to have you join us if you can. They're probably not accessible for our European friends though. And in October we have some hybrid classes here at the farm and just a full lineup of them. Go ahead and check those out if you'd like. And finally, if you'd like to pick up the Reiki business book, which Karen is my editor of that book and helped birth it, helped bring it to light. I do have a link in the podcast of how you can order it from Amazon.com or Amazon.ca. It can also be ordered from Amazon.uk and Australia as well. And it can be ordered from other independent booksellers. You would just, and Chapters and places like that, you would just have to go in and ask them to bring it in for you. I do understand it can be a little bit more expensive. The most competitive pricing seems to be on Amazon though. Karen, what have you got coming up? You've got some classes and you've got a wonderful retreat coming up. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we've got the retreat is full. That's coming up July 6th through the 9th, but I'm teaching the end after I get back from Wisconsin. I'm teaching 1 and 2 on the 16th and 17th, and I'm teaching Master during the week, 19th through the 21st. I'm teaching Animal 1 and 2, the 23rd and 24th, and Animal Reiki Master, the 28th through the 30th. So I'm going to miss the whales, but
yeah,
but that's going to be incredible. I'm definitely coming up there.
Yes, you need to come and visit and come see the whales. The whale watching tour is actually about where he picks us up is like a 1.5 to 2 minute walk from my house.
When you were talking about the porpoises, I thought there's another book, Porpoises from the Porch.
We do see porpoises from the porch.
Yeah.
I love it. No, it's the most beautiful island. It was Franklin Roosevelt's summer home, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt summer home. And so there's an international park there, a golf course, there's whales, beaches everywhere, and some of the most friendly, loveliest people that you've ever seen. So
that sounds like a perfect combination. It's a vacation and you get trained at the same time.
And it's very cool there. So if anybody's trying to get away from the summer heat of July, it's always very temperate there by the water. It's quite lovely. So yes, it is a wonderful retreat. Karen, before we begin, let's just start with a brief invocation and just invite everybody to bring their Reiki energy in. So I'm just going to invite people to bring their hands together in Gasho and to close your eyes and take a deep breath. And just allow the Reiki energy to flow through you. And to just open and clear each of your chakras, beginning above your head at your soul star, moving to your crown chakra, your brow, your throat, and your heart chakras, your solar plexus, your sacral, your base chakra, and then below your feet into your earth star. And just opening the chakras so that they are open to the unification consciousness that exists within holy fire, Reiki energy. Holy fire has shown that it contains the unification consciousness. And for those of us who send Reiki to the world peace grids, we send Reiki to the following intention. May the followers of all the world's religions and spiritual paths work together to create peace among all people on earth. And so we just invite the unification consciousness to flow through us now and to just open us to the divine feminine which exists within every religion, or almost every religion and spiritual path. And just breathing in the Reiki energy, we move to a place of gratitude today. Grateful for the freedom that exists within our culture today, the opportunity that we have to choose whichever religion speaks the most to us, this sense of religious freedom that we have. The freedom to practice as we wish, to be who we are. In an age of the inner authority versus the outer authority, we are so grateful to live in this moment in time today and to be of a lineage of light bringers who are not only creating wellness on the earth today, but who are making it more possible for people to be themselves, to be who they are, and be accepted for that. Thank you. Ahoma Takwiwas and a namaste. I never know what's going to come through when I do those.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. I'm feeling just a great sense of excitement from the Reiki energy from Source that we are tackling this topic today because it's unusual. I have met some people who don't have religious trauma, but it is unusual to meet people who don't have religious trauma, who haven't been traumatized in some way from their practice of or connection with religion. And so I know William Rand felt so strongly about it that he created the World Peace Grids, and he created them so beautifully. I know that I was raised Christian, but at one point, that religion that I was raised with didn't really define me anymore. It's almost as if I outgrew it. And one of the things that was really complicated for me is that it didn't address the divine feminine. And I was raised United Protestant, and we didn't even have Mother Mary. There really was no divine feminine there. And I'm just wondering, what's your history and background, and kind of how did you make your way to paganism? And because certainly paganism is a religion that has been vilified throughout history. So talk to us a little bit about your personal history with it and what brought you there.
I guess I would say I formally dedicated myself to the goddess in 1992, and I was born in 1963. So what is that? That's almost 30 years. I was born into a Christian family, if you will. My mother, I know, was Episcopalian. I went to the Episcopal church with my brother. Oh, at my grandfather's funeral, and the Apostles' Creed. I don't know if that was part of your.
No.
Oh, and I remember that my mom, my aunts, my uncles, they all started saying the Apostles' Creed at the funeral in unison. And I was like, where did that come from? I didn't know you knew that. Because my mother was Christian, but she believed devoutly that the church was evil and that it was going to be destroyed in the last days. And she would quote from the 17th and 18th chapters of Revelation, come out of her, my people, lest you be partakers of her sins. And so that's the way I was raised. But she would say, but make your own decision, go to different churches. When I was growing up, I know that she taught me. She said I used to sing when I was like 3, Jesus loves me as I know, which they thought was really funny. But I was always connected to Jesus. And this is funny. After my parents' divorce and during all the trauma of growing up, I remember missing my father, even though he was a violent alcoholic. When he wasn't drunk, he was a wonderful person. And I remember after we left being so sad. And I must have been maybe, I don't know, 5, 6, probably 6. And I remember thinking of Jesus as having really big hands. I was thinking about that last night, Pam, after we decided to talk about this. And I thought, isn't that interesting? I associated Jesus with hands, being a Reiki master.
Wow, big Reiki hands.
Yeah, but in my mind, Jesus had these really huge hands, and Jesus would hold me in his hands, and I would feel safe. And that probably even goes back to, I don't remember a lot about the violence, but I know there were times I had to hide, but there were times that were really bad. And I think that maybe that's where that came from, that probably my mother planted that seed. You know, Jesus loves the little children, like all the little songs that you learn. And that I always felt connected to Jesus as a protector. Now, the rest of it, I remember having trouble with. I remember being horrified by the story of Noah and the ark.
Oh, really?
Absolutely horrified. I remember sitting in the doctor's office. I don't know if you had these in Canada, but we had these like Bible story books.
Oh, yes, we had those.
They were blue. Do you know what I'm talking about? And I could still, in my mind, I could see this drawing of a zebra being washed away in the flood that was in the book. And I was completely traumatized by that. I thought, what did the animals do? The animals didn't do anything. That's not fair. And of course, it's supposed to be about, I remember seeing, it was a big theme for baby nurseries for a while. And I thought, oh my God, who would put that in? What a horrible thing to surround your child with. It's supposed to be about the promise of never destroying the earth again and the rainbow. But that never, I was terrified by the story of Abraham and Isaac when God asked him to
sacrifice. Yes.
And I remember thinking like, oh man, I hope God didn't appear to me. My mom wasn't the most stable person sometimes. I'm like, and I'm making light of this, but because that's what I do. Okay, so just to the listeners, when things get really deep and uncomfortable, I laugh. So it's not that I'm making light of it. It's deeply uncomfortable for me.
And I laugh with you because you're funny. But
that's how you get by, man. But so there were things about Christianity that I wasn't connecting with. Mm-hmm. And then I had so many issues with my daddy issues, that I went through. So my master's thesis that I wrote in my 20s was feminist literary criticism. I was such a radical feminist in my 20s that, because of all the trauma of my father, that I was a follower of Mary Daly and the radical feminists who believed that men were destroying the earth and it wasn't their fault. It's just testosterone. It makes them that way. And the solution to the world's problems is something called ovular merging. So we can reproduce without men by merging the eggs. It produces only female offspring. So we would have like an Amazon society. So this is where I was in my 20s.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. And then I started thinking, I don't know, like all those PMS women at the same time. I don't know.
And life wouldn't be as much fun without men.
And so this
sure.
How did I get here? This is my path. So I'm trying to succinctly summarize 50, almost 59 years of my religious path. And like young people today, more and more of them do not identify as religious, they identify as spiritual. And I think that's where all of us are going, because everything's opening up. What happened to me eventually, I came off of that really strict feminist path. I was really drawn to Native American spirituality. That made so much sense to me.
Yes, it does.
And yet, we didn't have the word cultural appropriation back in the 90s. But I instinctively knew this isn't right. Look at me. I'm a white person, and I'm not Native American, but that resonated with me so much. And then, you know how when you start on a quest, you start asking the questions, if not this, then what?
Right.
And then things start to show up. And I see this. It's funny that I started this 30 years ago, but I see it in young people now, young European, white looking people in America like me. And they are drawn, as I was, to the Celtic religions, the Norse religions, what's our native white religion? And it's paganism. And now the word pagan, and I used to teach this, I'm a former English professor, so I showed Pam this huge stack of books. Yeah. I used to teach goddess religions, world literature, because World Lit 1 there is no literature except religious literature. And so when you go back to the beginning, it's goddess stuff. Mm-hmm. One of the books I would recommend to my students is called When God Was a Woman, the White Goddess. But I lost my train of thought. What was it?
Well, pagan. Because really, the goddess religions were the original religions.
They were the original.
So that's why I wanted to start this series with this.
I used to tell my students that when primitive peoples ask those existential questions, like where does life come from? The answer they came up with was they pointed to the woman next to them and said, her. I've seen it. Life comes from her. I came from her. So and then they looked at the earth, and they said, and we still, Pam and I were talking about, we still say Mother Earth, Mother Nature, life. We see the plants grow up out of the earth. And so that's the root of it. And the primitive peoples worshipped the earth and woman. And normally then it would balance out just the way I did. I thought, this is a little off balance. I need a little of the male in there. After I had healed, I really needed to connect with my own divine feminine and heal that part of me where I felt like I wasn't good enough because I was a girl. And I'm old, but not that old. My dad, the name carried down through the son. Oh, yes. And he was always like, this is my daughter and this is my son. And so that
existed when I was young as well.
Yeah. And so I had to heal that. And then I came to seek a balance. And that's where I ended up with Wicca. I started with Dianic Wicca, which worships only the goddess. And then I thought, I need a little bit more. And now I just identify as pagan. Pagan means, it comes from the Latin pagani, and it means country dweller. That's just it means country dweller. It means the people who follow the old religions. And the word heathen in English, if you trace back its etymology, it means people of the heath.
Okay.
People who lived on the heath. Same thing, country dwellers, the people who were still out in the country.
My parents' farm is heathland, so I guess I am a heathen.
You're a heathen. And people say, it's like, what are you? I'm like, I'm heathen. It's like, I've got good manners, but it means that I'm very connected to the earth. And so
that's what pagan
goddess religions are. And there's so much to learn and to reconnect. And like you said in the invocation, I love that you said this, we all have the divine feminine, even males. Most people my age are kind of going like, what's up with this, like transgender and pronouns and all of that? But
I love it. I love that people can be who they are and express who they are, and that it's okay. And
we do live in a dual world, but there's some gray areas in between there. And we all as humans have the masculine and the feminine and I think there's someone I follow who on TikTok and Instagram, and he says gender is a colonial construct. And I'm like, it is, because the Native Americans, anyway, they have two-spirit people.
Yes, of course.
And I've thought about it.
Celts used to, they loved the person. And so they might marry a man, and then if that relationship doesn't work out or dissolves or whatever, they might marry a woman the next time.
Yeah, it was hard for me to teach. Say, I used to teach the Iliad and the Odyssey in World War I, and Achilles, the big bad. If you saw the movie, it was Brad Pitt. Achilles, the big bad Greek warrior. The reason he loses his mind is not the way they did it in the movie. Oh, because he was in love with this woman. No, it's because of his love for Patroclus, his man. And I said, if in the Greek society, when you have, if women really aren't, in the Greek mythology, woman is created as a bane to man, as a punishment for man, as a punishment for man for stealing fire. That's why all the gods come together and they create Pandora, the first woman, who is a nightmare.
Pandora's box.
Pandora's box. Woman is responsible for everything because we're curious. And I was like, yeah, I would open that box.
Me too. I might close it quick, but I would open it.
Don't open the box. And so she opens the box and out comes plague and death and all the horrible things. So woman, and this is what happened to the goddess religions. It's the oppression of women, and it's there in the stories. So anyway, I would tell my
they're in the Iliad, the Odyssey. It's also in the Garden of Eden.
So your real deep relationship was not with, you had to, in fact, I can point out passages in Greek literature where they say, oh, if only we didn't have to have women to have our children and have sons to carry on. Their real love was for another man, because a true love is going to be among equals. Anyway.
Wow.
I digressed a little, but
I didn't know that.
That's kind of what happened to the goddess religions. They were demonized. And they still are.
They definitely were. And I know, Karen, that I remember, like you, when I realized, oh, okay, this container of my Christian background, I had a very strong Christian background. I was a Sunday school teacher, for heaven's sakes. Oh. And I had perfect attendance for 18 years in church, in Sunday school myself, and sang in the choir and all of that. And then when I really started exploring my spirituality, I realized, okay, like I still have that base, but it's no longer enough to contain me or to define me. And like you, I was initially very drawn to Native American spirituality, and then it blossomed into a study of Celtic and this sort of thing. And I remember reading a book, The Mists of Avalon.
Yeah.
And I just remember being devastated at the end of it. And for a little while, like you, I always had a conversation with God. But like you, I had religious trauma because of the mean God that would create floods and pestilence and wars. And I'm like, that's not the guy I'm talking to. The guy I'm talking to would not be mean like that. And so I couldn't reconcile that even as a child. But for a little while, I couldn't talk to God, and I had to talk to the female aspect of God, the goddess, and which in my spiritual upbringing I didn't know much about, and so I had to study.
Because we didn't even have Mother Mary.
We didn't even have Mother Mary as Protestants. Like, there was no.
In fact, I was taught that was like idol worship and evil and satanic. That Catholicism was satanic.
Oh yes, we were taught that Catholicism was bad as well. As a Protestant, yes, definitely. and that was all there. But I remember after reading The Mists of Avalon, just falling on my knees and saying, this patriarchal society is so broken. And it's broken for the men just as much as it's broken for the women. It's not one sex over the other. It's the imbalance in the way that we're all proceeding and through our life. But I remember falling on my knees and going, why have we forgotten about the sacred feminine? for 2,000 years. And the goddess very clearly answered me, because you had to get to know your father. And she said, everybody already knew me. They already were planting plants in the fields and having chicks hatch, and cows having calves, and horses having foals, and pigs having piglets. They all knew the sacred feminine. You needed to get to know the sacred masculine. And I remember saying, but 2,000 years? And the goddess said, meh, what's 2,000 years? And I thought about it and I realized, oh, I suppose in the scheme of things, 2,000 years isn't very long at all.
Nope.
And so I feel there's this need for this balance. But tell me a little bit about paganism, because really, people don't know much about it. And so tell me about it, about the traditions,
I think as a Christian, you probably will recognize many of the basic tenets of it, because to bring the pagans into the church, the Christian church
adopted
many of the traditions. It's the perfect metaphor for this is the second time I went to England. I couch surfed with this man I had couch surfed with before, and he said, "Would you like to go see an Anglo-Saxon church?" Of course I would. I teach.
And just to tell people what couch surfing is,
couchsurfing.org is how you can join, and you can host people or you can stay with people for free. And being a single mom on a teacher salary, I couldn't travel if I didn't couch surf. And you can make friends. My mother said, "You're going to be murdered in your sleep." I'm like, "No, I won't." But anyway, he took me to this Saxon church and he said, "Look at this." And I said, "Do they still use it?" And he said, "Just for like special occasions. They don't always have." No, I think they did have Sunday services. I'm sorry. Anyway, it's this tiny little church. And he said, "Look at this." And he pulled up, there was like a trap door, and he lifted it up, and there were flowers and coins and all of these beautiful things on this rock. And I was like, "What is that?" And he said, "This is where all the pagans come." And so the church, this Anglo-Saxon church in 900 AD or so, was built on the pagan sacred site. All of the churches
were built
on sacred sites. Sometimes you can go
Yes.
down and there'll be like a well in the basement of the church, like a sacred. But anyway, and I said, "Well, isn't that interesting?" And I said, "So he said, "Oh yeah, they still come and make their offerings here. It's inside the church." And it's this little trap door. And I thought, isn't that interesting? It's a metaphor for what has happened. But most pagans, whether they're Wiccan or some people identify as like a Norse pagan or a Celtic pagan, all of them in the West, because you have Shintoism is actually Japanese paganism. You've got like your native nature religions, earth-based religions, and of course that's going to involve the goddess religion. There are usually 8 holidays. There are 4. We just had the solstice, and a lot of people celebrate the solstice.
I have been guided to celebrate solstices and equinoxes from the beginning, before I even knew what they were.
Because we don't have anything without the sun, and that's the masculine aspect. So when you were talking about the duality there, yeah, you got to have the earth, but you know what? You got to have some sun too, because you've got to have that light, and that's like the penetrating the fire, and then you've got the earth. It's the two together that bring life. So that's pretty much what pagans celebrate. They celebrate 4 solar holidays and then 4 in-between holidays. And then they usually have what the Wiccans call esbats. They're the monthly moon celebrations. And many traditions associate the moon with the goddess, because the moon changes like the goddess changes. Women, okay, I remember my family doctor, who was Catholic, said something to me because I was struggling with depression and this and that. And he said, "You women," he said, "you have it harder." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You change." He said, you're always like," he said, "men are pretty much," he said, "but not you guys." And I would have resented that when I was younger. And then, of course, in my 40s, I went, you're right. And I embraced it. We change like the moon. And that's why the moon is. Did you know, speaking of menstrual cycles from earlier, did you know that before the invention of artificial light, all women had their periods either on the new moon or the full moon?
I
We're
did.
that tied to the moon. It's a 28-day cycle. It's a lunar cycle. So women, the goddess is associated with the moon because of the changes that the moon goes through.
And you talk about those changes. My husband's diabetic, and so was my cousin, who's unfortunately passed away. But we noticed that with diabetes, you can see the changes because with men, the sugars are like this, but with women, because of the hormones, the sugars go, and so diabetes can be more challenging for women to manage.
Didn't know that.
And so there's a very visible sign of the fact that women are not the same, and that we are constantly cycling or moving. That's really neat, Karen.
Yeah. And so you have a duality in paganism. You have the goddess and the god, and the goddess is associated with the earth and the like life-giving. And then the god is like the hunter, like the great horned hunter, like Kernunos,
Yes.
with the horns. He's associated with the animals. So the earth, so that maybe the goddess is more associated with, I'm thinking of the Roman goddess Ceres or Demeter in Greek, associated with the grain and the growing of the crops. And then you've got the male is the hunter, because I don't want to hunt anything.
Neither. Honestly.
If I had to provide my own food, I'd be eating tree bark, man. I just I'm not gonna kill that rabbit. No, I don't know. Maybe to feed my son, I could. But that is a different aspect of the goddess. So we'll talk about that in a second. But
yeah,
but you have your two solstices. So the 4 solar holidays are huge. They're big. So what I celebrated yesterday, it's not my favorite in the Northern Hemisphere because I live in Arkansas, USA, and it's hot.
You guys have had some heat.
I did not go out and go, yay, sun. I cowered in my house with my air conditioning and said, thank you for all your lights. Thank you for my food. Thank you for your burning sun. For me, what in Irish is called Litha, what the summer solstice is about, is the strong sun. In fact, what I call the full moon in June, the strong sun moon. And what I'm thinking about at this point, because I live in the Northern Hemisphere, if I moved to Australia, it'd be a complete opposite. I'd be celebrating Yule. But the summer solstice is about intense heat that's going to bring all the crops up and bring them to
fruition.
Right?
Yeah.
And because it's about expansion. And so what I spent time journaling yesterday about what I want to expand. What do I want to reach out into? And what am I going to have to burn up, if you will, in this hot sun? What am I going to have to release in order to expand? So that's, for me, that's what the summer solstice is about. On the opposite, on which we call Yule, my poor son, he said, Mom, he said, the teacher asked, he was like in 3rd grade, he said, teacher asked about holidays, and I raised my hand and said Yule, and nobody knew what I was talking about. I said, oh, for heaven's sakes. I said, don't they celebrate the Yule tide, be gay and all that? And he said, no. Yule is Christmas. Yule is the winter solstice. And so what we do on Yule, because it's usually December 20th, 21st,
Yeah.
is we get up before dawn, and the place we went last year, I didn't realize we were in a valley, and I timed like when the sunrise comes up, but we had to wait for it to come over the mountain. It's like, it's glowing. Here it comes. Like the first time my friend went with me to celebrate winter solstice, she said, what do we do? Sacrifice a goat? I'm like, no, I said, we're pretty tame pagans. We have hot cocoa. We sit there in the dark and we watch. It's incredible. We choose a word for the upcoming year. the winter solstice is the longest night of the year and the shortest day. So we sit there in the dark and we watch the sun come up. It comes up and we share. We're like, welcome back, sun. And we share a word that we want to take into the new year to help us develop. And that's pretty much all we do. But we have the two solstices. And so one is an extreme expansion and the other one is an extreme turning inward. And then you have your equinoxes. So we have the vernal equinox, which I call Ostara, which we get our word Easter from. And that's in the spring. And then we have Mabon, which is the harvest, the final harvest, if you will. And then you have quarters, or like in between those four. It's called the Wheel of the Year. There are 8 of them. So between now and the equinox, August the 1st, we're going to celebrate Lammas, which comes from the Old English loaf mass. It's called Lunasa in Ireland. Lunasa. Meryl Streep made a movie called Dancing at Lunasa. Lu is the god of light. And it's a harvest festival. It's like the first harvest.
Right.
Where I live, everything's burned up by August. But
we're harvesting in August.
Yeah, so it's the first harvest. And it's one of the more minor ones. The next one between the equinox and Yule is a huge one. Most people know because we celebrate it here. It's called Samhain. And it's Halloween.
Yeah.
And it's about harvest. I call the October moon the blood moon. So what it symbolizes is the death of the vegetation god. We call it the blood moon. And it is that vegetation god that is reborn on Yule with the return of the sun. Okay. That's the story. And then so you can see how easy it was to, because Jesus wasn't born in December.
No, he was.
No, they think he was probably in the spring.
They said June by all accounts.
Yeah, it wasn't December. Like December 25th that's Saturnalia. That's a Roman holiday. And Yule but it's the birth of the sun coming back. It was like the longest night, but here comes the sun. Little darling, I'm going to sing the Beatles. But so it's like the death of the vegetation god goes inward. It's reborn on Yule, and then it continues to grow. It's an agricultural cycle. That's all it is. Right. But we have growth cycles. So for me, it's deeply meaningful to me to stop at these 8 points around the year. Oh, we have Groundhog Day. That's another pagan holiday. That's Imbolc.
Right.
Which in America, I don't know where we got this stupid tradition of pull that poor groundhog out and see if he sees his shadow, but it's a pagan holiday. It's in between Yule and Ostara. So it's the quickening. Is it spring yet? Is it spring yet? Is it spring yet? And I guess that's why we pull out a groundhog and go, nope, 6 more weeks.
And Imbolc is, I always have loved, because here in February, it's very snowy still, February 2nd. But it's when the earth is waking up under the snow and under the ice. And yeah, she's waking up.
Yeah. And it just goes every year around. And so at each point, say every couple of months, you are doing like a kind of a life inventory, a moral inventory of what am I ready to let go of? What am I? And it's a spirituality that I practice every day. And then the particular moons. So I'm doing that with the sun. And then every month I'm like, I'm a gardener. And even before I'd found paganism, I always used the Farmer's Almanac because it worked.
Right.
You plant radishes, carrots when the moon is during like the dark of the moon.
Yeah.
Under. And you plant above ground crops in
the full moon.
When it's going toward full. Sorry, I can't talk. And then you do that with your life as well. And then each moon has some significance. And a lot of people are into studying astrology and all that. There's something to it.
Even though my parents and my family were very Christian, and anti-pagan, anti-Catholic, like everything else was evil, they still weaned the horses on the full moon, and because
It works.
and they still would watch they would do certain plantings and things in the garden according to the full or the new moon, and also harvesting, because of course full moon
Yes.
often would bring frost. They would often be
It
colder.
also makes a difference in how well the vegetables store because of the
Yeah.
water content. The moon is so tied to, well, and us with the
and
water.
and us, because we're made up mostly of water. And so just the same that I had a Native American teacher once who explained that we are mostly water, so our bodies respond to the ebb and the flow
Mhm.
of the tides and of the moon the same as the tides do. Our bodies respond to the moon in the same way. So
Yeah. I'd like to flip over and talk about the moon and the goddess.
yeah.
So most pagans and Wiccans especially worship it's called the triple goddess. And it's usually symbolized where you have the you have the waxing moon, full moon, and then the waning moon. So it'll be like two crescents in a circle. And
Yes.
that's a symbol for the triple goddess. And what that means, when I see that as a pagan, it's really comforting to me because I see change. Life, the only constant in life is change. And that we may be in the dark of the moon now, but it is moving towards something that it's in my life. And as an older woman and a person who worships the goddess, it helps me embrace. I'm moving into my cronehood, or maybe I'm in my cronehood. I'm like, dude, I'm starting to feel that the crone usually is vilified. She's the old hag,
Mhm.
and in our culture, and I'm sure in Canadian culture and whoever else is listening, in most cultures, the older woman is like, it's just is more than useless. She's a burden,
Right.
even more than an older man. I remember, I just have to trust me on that. I've done a lot of research on it, but because we are not menstruating, we're not giving birth anymore. We hold all of our wisdom inside. And it's been a little difficult for me to embrace that power, but I'm stepping into it. Yeah, I know some stuff. I know some stuff. I've been through some stuff and I know some stuff. And this is funny that younger women, and I say younger, like women in their 40s, are coming to me. And I think that's why I'm moving into coaching, because people are coming and asking me stuff. And there was a part of me, I'm like, well, I don't know anything. But then I'm like, oh no, actually, yeah, I do. I know a lot of stuff.
Tell us
And
about the 3 cycles, the mother maiden.
okay, so first is the maiden. And you have a lot of goddesses that are maiden goddesses. One of my favorites is Artemis, but she was the huntress. That's funny, but she's independent. It's the virgin goddesses. Athena, she's another virgin goddess. She sprang boing, to life in Greek mythology straight from Zeus's head.
Wow.
And she was the only one who could carry Zeus's thunderbolt. She's a real daddy's girl, but she didn't marry. She caused a lot of trouble, but she's a maiden virgin goddess. And the purpose of the maiden is she's like that innocence. She's the daughter. She's Persephone, who becomes the queen of the underworld in Greek mythology. She's the innocent. She's all the things you love about little girls, not the mean ones, but like all the things. She's the maiden and she's independent. She's not the mother. That's the middle. She is becoming. That's the magic of the maiden or the young man, is that they're in the stage of becoming, the possibilities, all the directions they can go. That's the maiden stage. When my son turned 13, because we didn't have anything. In the Jewish culture, and I know you're going to talk to somebody in Judaism, there's a rite of passage. We don't have any rites of, okay, now you're an adult. So I had to do some research and I created, it's called a spike ceremony. A spike is a little male deer who's just starting to get his little antlers. And so when on his 13th birthday, I invited every important adult in his life, his Boy Scout troop master, my stepdad, my brother, my sister-in-law was men and women, and we did a circle, and each one I asked him to write their best piece of advice for becoming an adult. And they shared that. And I braided like a cord and it didn't work. I tied around my waist and tied around his waist, and I symbolically cut it.
Nice.
Because that was more for me. Like he was ready to bolt anyway. Right? But Mama needed to cut the cord, like literally. So I just created this ceremony, and I said, you're 13, and it's time for you to, I'm distancing myself from you. Love, and I recognize that you are becoming your own person. So it was like a formal recognition. And we should do that with girls when they get their first period, because then when a girl gets her period, she is moving from the maiden into the mother, which is frightening to think of at 12. It's possible, which is why I'm a pro-choice person. I'm not going to get political, but it's possible that she can become a mother. So that's when, though, the mother, that's when you are all about giving life, creating. Either if you're not giving birth to children, you're giving birth to businesses and ideas. You're creating, and then you're taking care of things because you're the mother and you got everything going on. Like, I'm the mother and the wife. Sometimes you have that aspect of the goddess, but the mother is more powerful than, say, the maiden, which is funny because in our culture, it's the maiden. Because we try to keep women as little girls in that need taken care of and blah, blah, blah. And anyway, not to get too far into that. There are 3 aspects. And then the last stage, the stage I'm moving into, is the crone. The crone is the wise woman. She's also the destroyer. I want to talk a little bit about the idea of the crone, like Hecate, like the old woman who stands at the crossroads, or I'm wearing my Carid earrings. This is an Irish goddess. She has her legs wrapped around this huge cauldron. Oh. She is not a destroyer, but everybody who dies goes into this cauldron of rebirth. She is the one who stirs the cauldron. So it's a different kind of life. Like, you don't get life without destroying what comes before. Thank God the Egyptians worship the dung beetle.
Yeah.
Like, thank goodness we have insects to eat up all the dead stuff.
Oh my gosh. Good insects, we'd be in trouble.
Yeah. And that's what that aspect of the goddess is. Like, or Kalima in India. She's a destroyer goddess. Sometimes I just released stuff so I could expand into where I'm going next. That release is a destruction. Like, you have to destroy it and let it go so you can move forward. That's how the moon does. The moon, of course, it's just reflecting the light scientifically, but symbolically, it goes through these phases, and you've got to have the darkness. And I love the new moon. I love it when the night skies is dark. You can see stars, and that's part of what the crone represents. I know but this is the calmest I have ever been in my life. Okay. What you may be thinking. This is like to me, dark can be like that comforting. Oh, like you said about you loved Imbolc because of like the snow and then what's happening under the earth. I love wintertime. I love that deep internal reflection and rest. The destruction dark goddess is about rest. And why would we push that away?
It's interesting, though, because I think as light workers, sometimes we are so drawn to the light that any reference to dark can be presumed as negative or whatnot. But I feel in some of my horse work, which is much more earth-based and probably along the lines of paganism a bit more, But in some of my horse work, we talk about the fact that everything still exists in the darkness. It's just our knowledge of it may not be. And I imagine my yard and the thing that I might bump my shin on, it's there, whether it's light out or dark out. But it just has to do with awareness, and that there can be tremendous gifts in the dark. And you're making me think of it, Karen, about that letting go. That letting go is so important. When I led the solstice meditation for this podcast last week, that was what I was told. It was about, what are we letting go of so that we can become who we want to become by the end of the year. Where are we going, and what do we need to destroy or let go of? So just what is your thought on the word darkness, because that shows up in the goddess religions.
So as it relates to the goddess religions, especially when you were speaking, I was thinking, so I feed the birds, and sunflower seeds, sometimes they knock them down into one of my flower pots, and that seed is in the darkness. That, if you've ever seen something sprout, like the sunflower sprout from a sunflower seed, it sits there in the dark. We all have to sit in the dark. That's where all the potential is in the darkness. That's why this goddess in this cauldron is important, because you have to go into the cauldron of darkness to come out anew.
Creation happens.
That's where creation happens. Yeah. And when you were talking about that, I thought, yes, you have to sit in the dark inside that seed, and then you get that, okay, son. And then I don't know what happens. And then it just starts coming out, and then it has to cast off that. I think of sunflower seeds because those seeds are those hulls are really cumbersome. Somehow it gets it off and grows pretty fast. Nice. And that's what, to me, the darkness is. And I've stopped thinking about darkness as evil and bad. In fact, I've really kind of stopped thinking about evil. With Reiki, when we talk about, in our lineage, we do the healing spirit attachments. And I emphasize to my student that the power of God's love is so powerful. You've charged yourself up with holy fire Reiki, and you're releasing it with love. You're not like casting it out. Get out, you evil. You're releasing it
with love.
And I don't think even of like spiritual, like discarnate spirit things as evil, maybe heavy and negative, but I know that it can be dispelled with the light. Or like you said, like your stump is always out there in the dark. It's there, whether you bump into it or not. You shine a light on it. And I don't know, I'm really in my old age starting to just go, it just is. When you talk to somebody with Taoism and that yin yang symbol, which is constantly moving, it's actually a torus turned into 2 dimensions. And you have that little black inside the white, and then you have the little white inside the black. It's constantly, the white inside the black is going to get bigger, and the blacks, and it's turning, and it always has one. You can't have one without the other, and it's always doing this balance. So in a goddess religion, you embrace all three of them.
Right.
The maiden, the mother, the crone, everything I do.
And you embrace the light and the dark, it sounds
like. The light and the dark, because it's all part of life.
It's all part of the cycle. It seems like it's simply
around an animal Reiki. I love that course. It's my favorite course to teach because we talk about nature, and we talk about how animals view things differently. Animals, being pagan is being more like an animal, trying to pull back, and they see a bigger picture. They see it's not so this is good, this is bad. This really, I am open to any spiritual path or any religion. The only ones I shy away from are the ones who want to hurt me. Or the ones, anything that says this is the way and the only way, that that'll be a red flag for me. But
That is
other
a
than
red
that,
flag for me too.
more than anything, I'm curious, like, how do you do it? How do you celebrate this thing called life? How do you get through tough times? What do
Me
you
too.
do?
I've studied religions for a long time and I just find them fascinating.
Yes.
And the more that you study, the more that you realize, wait a minute, we're not that different. I
Oh,
remember they showed on Hay House, they showed a picture of a pie chart. And they said, when we first start learning about spirituality, we're out here on the edge of the pie chart, like out here on the crust, and we say, you see, I'm different from you because I'm Christian and you're Buddhist. And then, but he says, once you get closer and closer to the middle, you get to the center and you go, wait a minute, we're all the same pie. And
I
and
love
so
that.
that's where the idea for all roads lead home comes from, that one of the things we talk about in Reiki is Reiki isn't a religion. And I asked William about that one day. I said, William, I don't really understand why you say that or why it's important. And he said, religions tend to divide. They tend to make us feel separate from one another. Whereas Reiki, first of all, Reiki works with all religions and it's meant to be inclusive. It's meant to include everyone and not to be exclusive or make you feel different from one another. So, for that purpose, it's really a spiritual path as opposed to a religion.
Yes.
And he talked about how, regardless of your religion, Reiki can help you experience it more. And religious trauma often comes up in class. Many people have experienced some form of religious trauma. I actually had one student once who says, I had no religious trauma. And I said, wow, you're the first person I ever met who has no religious trauma. That's pretty cool. And she really didn't. She really had been raised in a religious spiritual tradition or religious tradition that was very comfortable to her in all aspects. And I found that unusual because so many of us do have some sort of trauma from this lifetime and sometimes even from other lifetimes. How do paganism and Reiki go together? How do you find that works?
It works perfectly for me. The thing about Reiki is when you take the Reiki principles, the Reiki ideals, just for today, do not be angry, do not worry, be filled with gratitude, devote yourself to your work and be other people, every living being, starting with yourself. That I can't think of a religion that goes against.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was telling you when I first started with Wicca, I watched like on TikTok some of these younger pagans, and I'm like, that I've been there, I've done that. And they're very concerned about, okay, so for this moon, you have to have this color of a candle, and this crystal is good, and use these herbs. It's good to and and I and that's where I was, because I was finding my way, like branching out. There's got to be something else. So, well, let me try this. And it reminded me of how Mrs. Takata taught Reiki before we were ready, say at Reiki Master, to learn a more intuitive Leji Ho and like really trust in yourself and trust in that connection to the divine. Before you really learn to trust, you start with put your hands here, put your hands here, and feel. And that's where we all start. And so I think that for me, Reiki, I looked at it more as, I didn't look at it as a spiritual path at the beginning. But what happened was the practices, except the major things, I really stick to the wheel of the year because it helps me. And Reiki doesn't interfere with that. But I noticed that the things that I used to, I need to do this, or I need to, that just slid into the background. It's still, oh yeah, I know, I can tell you what herb to use for that or whatever, but that kind of slid to the background. And now it's part of my crone knowledge, I guess. It's like, yeah, use Okay, now I can't think of one. But sometimes people ask me like, what can I use to open up, to open up my sinuses? Oh, here, use some of this mint stuff, or here, use some Artemisia. But that's herbally stuff. I can remember the man I stayed with in couch surfing. He was a Reiki practitioner, and he said, I'm a witch. And so when I got there, I asked him, I said, what kind of witch are you? And I said, are you Wiccan? He said, oh God, no. He said, those people that go flouncing about in those robes. He said, no, I'm not that. He said, I'm a hedge witch. And I don't use the word witch either. That has really negative connotations.
That has really negative connotations. But he felt comfortable with that term?
Witch, yeah. He said, Karen, I put that on there to scare most people away. It didn't work on you. I said, no. I thought, oh, he must be a very nice man. Those witches I know are very nice people. They're pagans. And the word, the wah, there's kind of some dissension on, should we use the witch word or not use the witch word? Witch just means wise woman.
Wow.
But it has such a negative connotation that you know what? I would not be doing this podcast with you 5 years ago because my son, and because of where I live in the Bible Belt, and I would not want my son to be punished for, or ostracized, or even myself. I have stepped into, so I've been since 1992, but it's just, so like, I'm in the broom closet. Yeah, I'm a Wiccan, but I'm in the broom closet.
Not just the closet, the broom closet.
In the broom closet, man. But I think it's hard for me to identify as one specific thing. That's why I just embrace the term pagan now, because I used to say I'm a solitary eclectic witch, meaning that I practice by myself and I draw from many different traditions. And now I'm just like, I think I'm just a Reiki master. It's love. Just love. That's all. That's all the religions are. Like you said at the very beginning. It's just different ways of trying to find the love in yourself.
And to experience it and express it, isn't it? And
yeah.
Vidya told me that once. She said she followed different religions, and now her religion is Reiki because Reiki is love. And she follows the religion of love. And she said, really, every religion has love at its core. And every person, every animal, every being in existence on the planet, we all have love at our core, don't we? Yeah. Regardless of how we choose to worship or express it.
Yep. Very well said.
Oh, thank you. Every so often. Well, Karen, is there anything, what would you advise somebody who's, and you mentioned to me that you notice a lot of young people are embracing this. Tell me a little bit about that.
I think it's because they are traumatized by what they see going on in the name of religion. And I have a great deal of faith in young people.
I do too.
I really do. I know, like, I'm technically a boomer. I think you're Gen X. I'm technically a boomer. I'm like just barely the tail end of it, like whatever boomer. But I'm one of the boomers that I'm looking and I'm saying, like, no, you have figured out the BS. You've gone that. We're not doing that anymore. And they're throwing things out. And they have so much to deal with. But I think that they're looking at, one, the planet.
Yeah.
Way back in the 80s, when I first started teaching Joseph Campbell, which, by the way, if you haven't read this, The Power of Myth, he is the world's foremost mythologist. He died in the 80s. And there's a series with Bill Moyers where he talks about all the different myths. And by myth, he means not like it's not true, the stories, the religions. He puts religion in, he calls it a myth, not that it's not true. He said all religions are true. All religions are true for their time and their place where they are. They're all true because they all go back to love. But I think that young people are looking at the earth and the planet, and where else are you going to go back to? Look at what we're doing to the planet that sustains us. And so that's, to me, is a very natural place to go, is to the pagan religions too. Let's celebrate the seasons while we still have them. let's see if we can't get back into balance. It's that call to balance. That's what's drawing them to that. And they're eschewing religions because religions are too limiting. They're not big enough anymore.
I've heard a lot of people say that when they get into their Reiki journey that they've gone beyond.
That's it.
Like, not that they've discarded it necessarily, but that their understanding has gone beyond.
And we're creating new stuff. I did a women's retreat. I did a Reiki experience at a women's full moon retreat. The woman who organized it was Jewish. There was a woman who was big in the Baptist church here, and there were lots of different religions, but these two, I think they were both Baptists, but they had left their churches, and they were talking about how they didn't miss the confining aspects of it, but they said, you know what I miss? And the reason they had come to this women's full moon retreat overnight, I miss the fellowship. And that is, I think, something useful from organized religion is that sense of belonging. And when you are just beaten down and just can't move forward, to have a group of people who say, come here, we will love you, come be part of our group. That's an important part, but we have a long discussion about how that part is needed. We need the fellowship, or that's a masculine word, but we need the camaraderie.
Yeah.
It's probably also masculine. All the words are masculine, doesn't matter. We need to come together, not just women, men, all of us. We need a home. And I think for me, that is taken by Reiki now, that's because it's such a mixture. I accidentally scheduled a class on Easter a couple of years ago. And then I thought, oh heavens, nobody's going to take it Reiki 1 and 2 on Easter. And I had a Hindu and a Jewish person. And I was like,
that's fabulous.
Hey, I'm Pagan. And so let's do this. And it's so beautiful to me that the Holy Fire, which I was resistant to, I didn't take it until Holy Fire 2. I heard Holy Fire say, I don't want to do that because
really? Okay.
And
I
then
didn't take it right away. I waited till 2015 to take Holy Fire Reiki. Yeah.
And now I work with Jesus again. Jesus in his hands. Jesus in his hands. So I've come back to Jesus. How could you be pagan and work with Jesus? I guess I've always worked with Jesus, and Jesus as the ultimate healer, and he was the one who took care of me. That ascended master who figuratively held the little girl in his hands. So I've come back to working with Jesus, Mother Mary, Kuan Yin. Yeah. It's just
lovely.
Yeah.
I love it. Karen, what advice do you have for anybody who's interested in exploring the goddess religions further and learning more about them?
I would, because like I said, I'm seeing a lot out there.
A lot of young people, aren't you?
A lot of young people. And I did go to some gatherings and stuff. And I did come to the conclusion with a lot of, like my friend in England, but all these people flouncing about in robes, it seemed more like a costume dress up.
Right.
Like, I'm a witch. Here's my wand. And so I was like, no, this isn't it. This is not what I'm looking. These are not the witches I'm looking for. And honestly, I would recommend going inward. And I get some books. Scott Cunningham.
You've got a whole stack.
Facebook groups. You're gonna have a lot of people that are looking. I would, as William always says, you go in, you follow the inner authority. Always look to an inner authority, not an outer authority, because you can get mixed up with some people who are a little off track, I would say. And that's true in any religion, not just paganism.
Oh, yes.
But find some books, and you're going to be doing a lot of meditating, a lot. And if you find yourself like, okay, get a candle on the full moon by yourself, make a little circle. I did all the things, and you stick to some things, you create your own connection to the divine. And if they are interested in paganism as a path, most people who listen are already on the Reiki path, I would just say continue, use your Reiki principles, and then just start paying attention to your connection to the seasons and to the earth, to the sun and to the moon. That's all paganism is. The pentacle, the pentagram, that represents earth, air, fire, water, spirit, 5 elements. It's a sacred symbol. That's another thing that has been demonized, turned upside down as a satanic symbol. But it, back like when I used to teach Goethe in World Lit II. Do you know the story of Faust?
No.
Mephistopheles, the demon who was Faust sells his soul to the devil in order to get something. You probably know that story.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. In the play, he says, "How were you able to get in here?" And Mephistopheles says, "Oh," he says, "the pentagram on your door." He said, "It has a broken leg." And my students were always shocked by that. I'm like, no, the pentagram was a protection symbol. It was to keep the devil out. It's not a symbol of the devil. But when I think of a pentagram, I think of, that's the essence of paganism: earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. The things that we're made of earth, we're made of water, we're made of air and fire, the electrical impulses running through our body, and spirit. It's us. So keep it simple. That's my advice. Keep it simple. Don't get all into, yeah.
And it's very much like the earth-based Native American religions, the 4 directions, and
exactly
earth, air, fire, water, and
exactly.
And upper.
I think their colors are a little, yeah, and the direction. So for me, north is earth, and east is air, and south is fire, and west is water. And I think in the Native Americans, it's something different, but I can't remember.
No, I'm not sure.
That's my practice.
I love it. Is there anything else you want to add, Karen, before you're going to lead us in a
Song of the Goddess? Yeah.
Song of the Goddess today? And we're just going to invite people. You don't have to, just to listen to this beautiful goddess prayer, and just maybe it might be nice to allow it to open up the divine feminine within you, whatever that is, and whatever tradition that you.
Yes, because this could be Isis of Egyptian, and it could be Mother Mary. It could be any goddess you identify with, Kuan Yin.
And it could be your own divine feminine,
yeah,
awakening as well. So yeah, so Karen, okay. I'm going to ask you to go ahead.
Okay, so just, if you would, just, if you've got Reiki, go ahead and activate your Reiki. Place your hands over your heart. Continue taking deep breaths, deep belly breaths. And just listen to the song of the goddess. I am the Great Mother, worshipped by all creation and existent prior to their consciousness. I am the primal female force, boundless and eternal. I am the chaste goddess of the moon, the lady of all magic. The winds and moving leaves sing my name. I wear the crescent moon upon my brow, and my feet rest among the starry heavens. I am mysteries yet unsolved, a path newly set upon. I am a field untouched by the plow. Rejoice in me and know the fullness of youth. I am the Blessed Mother, the gracious Lady of the harvest. I am clothed with the deep, cool wonder of the earth and the gold of the fields, heavy with grain. By me, the tides of the earth are ruled. All things come to fruition according to my season. I am refuge and healing. I am the life-giving mother, wondrously fertile. Worship me as the crone, tender of the unbroken cycle of death and rebirth. I am the wheel, the shadow of the moon. I rule the tides of women and men and give release and renewal to weary souls. Though the darkness of death is my domain, the joy of birth is my gift. I am the goddess of the moon, the earth, the seas. My names and strengths are manifold. I pour forth magic and power, peace and wisdom. I am the eternal maiden, mother of all, and crone of darkness, and I send you blessings of limitless love. Blessed be.
Blessed be. Thank you, Karen. Thanks so much for
Thank you for having me.
Conversation with us today and just bringing us back to the original religions. I really appreciate that. Just want to say thank you to the listeners as well. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for the beautiful light that you are spreading in the world. Namaste.